Good. So I thought the president's team laid out what this is really about. This is about the Democrats trying to cancel the guy that 74 million Americans voted for. They've been obsessed with this. The obsession continues, so much so that they're willing to ignore the Constitution, willing to ignore due process, and frankly, willing to ignore the facts. I thought it was interesting when it comes to the facts that the video the Democrats played, nowhere in that video did they have the statement where the president said, peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. And of course, the president's counsel strongly, I think very strongly, made the case for how this is not constitutional. The simple fact remains, how do you remove someone from office who's already left? The Democrats tried to remove President Trump from office before he got there. They're trying to remove him from office after he's already left. And then finally, of course, is the due process that they spent a great deal of time on, I think, very effectively. I said this earlier today, the lack of due process in this impeachment makes Adam Schiff look like he was fair. And we all know that the president didn't get to call any witnesses in the previous impeachment, but this was, as our colleague has said, this was impeachment by reflex, no due process for the president. And I thought the president's team effectively laid out those core arguments, and we'll see those reinforced over the next few days.
Just to add simply, people back home, a lot of people are wondering really what this whole thing is about. They get lost in a lot of the legal arguments. I'm from Louisiana. My junior Senator Kennedy said very well, I think last night or this morning, he said, the goal of this is really about political vengeance. He said the goal is to equate 75 million Trump voters with the rioters who breached the Capitol here. And I think that was on display with the video that was displayed by our colleagues from the House, and we hope that the substantive legal arguments carry the day, because under the Constitution, they are supposed to. So that's a simple summary of what happened.
Congressman, President Trump's legal team seemed to suggest throughout their statements that they believe the House managers did a good job, that they modified their argument according to that. Do you believe that the House managers made a convincing argument today, and do you know how the president's legal team's argument was modified as a result?
No, I don't think the House managers did a great job laying out their case, because it doesn't change the facts. The facts are, how do you incite a breach of the Capitol when it was already planned? How do you incite a breach of the Capitol when you said peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard? How do you impeach a president who's no longer in office when it says impeach and disqualify and they're linked? I thought the president's team made a strong case on those. Again, you got to keep coming back to the fundamentals. The constitutional argument is strong for the president. The lack of due process, I think, is exceptionally strong for the 2-hour impeachment on the House side. And then finally, the facts support the president's position. I do think what was effective from the president's counsel was the statements made by Democrats that the Democrats always want to ignore. I mean, we actually had a colleague of ours on the House side who said last summer, when all the crazy things were happening, the terrible things were happening in many of our major cities, they said there should be more unrest in the streets at a time when there was unrest in the streets. So I thought that was particularly effective as well from the president's team.
There are a lot more highlights like that. I mean, Senator Schumer, I remember the language he used calling out Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and telling a crowd in front of the Supreme Court just a few months ago that they would be coming after them or something to that effect. There's a lot of emotional, hyperbolic language in our politics today, and there's a lot of emotion surrounding the tragic events of January 6th, but what is supposed to govern this decision is the law, the Constitution, and I think the President's Counsel did a good job in that second half laying out what the law says, what the actual language of the Constitution is, and hopefully at the end of the day that will govern, because otherwise we open a Pandora's box for political vengeance. If you can impeach presidents after they leave office, it sets a very dangerous trend, and especially with the nature of our politics today, it's something that I think all of us should want to avoid.
Congressman, how would you suggest that you hold an outgoing president accountable for things that he did toward the very end of his term?
I mean, I can keep saying it. I can say it a third time, but you know, the facts are on the president's side. The Constitution and the lack of due process are all on the president's side. I think it's, again, we got to remember what this really is. The Democrats began their impeachment of President Trump 19 minutes after he took the oath of office on January 20, 2017. I mean, literally 12:19 p.m., the president's just taken the oath of office, and the Washington Post headline reads, campaign to impeach President Trump has begun. So when I say obsession, that's truly what this is from the left and from the Democrat Party.
If he had done something impeachable, would there be any procedure you think would be constitutional to deal with it?
This procedure is not constitutional in my judgment, and I think 45 senators felt the same when that amendment was brought by Senator Paul just a couple weeks ago.
Have you spoke to President Trump
As far as
today?
the video was a concern that was played at the very beginning of this trial, is there concern that could actually change some minds on the Republican side since it was meant to elicit an emotional response?
I don't think, it doesn't change the facts, doesn't change the Constitution argument, doesn't change the lack of due process, doesn't change any of that. And I do think it was interesting, as I said earlier, one of the fact that they didn't play the statement. I remember a few years ago, Democrats talked about selectively edited videos that they didn't play the statement that the president made when he actually told the rally goers to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard.
Congressman, did the president watch today?
I don't know for sure, but I assume he did. But I haven't
Have
talked to
you
the president.
spoken to him today?
I've not talked to the president today.
Are you all planning on going to Florida this weekend? The time I read that some of your colleagues might be going to Florida for the weekend.
There's a House Freedom Caucus event. I don't think the president's scheduled to be at that. But there's a House Freedom Caucus event. Thank you all.
Thank you, Congressman.